Time travel! Here's my review of Erased.
Who's the one and only Malcolm?
I am.
Seriously, this show, pretty fucking awesome. Let me start off by saying that I thought this show was going to be about a kid with powers that goes out and solves the weekly problem. He might have to face the villain of the week, or for some strange reason, his power helps him with some sort of mundane school problem going forward. Based on the premise of this show, based on what I read on Crunchyroll and Funimation and other sites, that's what I thought I was getting into when I saw this show. So I wasn't excited about it. I actually put it off for a little while thinking, you know what? It looks like a cool cover art, but I'll get to it later. And I regretted that decision. I regretted that decision hard. Not only was Erased not a Monster of the Week type of show, but it also had a really solid overarching plot for the entire series. The main character's name is Satoru, and he has a special ability that no one else has. He is able to travel back in time several minutes before an accident occurs, and he's able to actually stop that accident from happening. He has no idea why he has this power, but it's that he does, and he has to live with it. So through his mundane life as a manga artist, he just goes out there, and when he has a situation where revival comes into play, he uses it for the greater good. And he's not able to control this power fully, so he can't control when it happens, but when it does work, he can only go back several minutes from when the actual accident occurred. That is until one evening when he comes home and he finds his mother murdered on the bathroom floor. A neighbor walks by his open door front and finds him with blood on his hands, and she naturally assumes that he's the killer. Satoru gets scared and flees from the cops. In the middle of his escape, his time travel ability does kick in, but instead of taking him only a couple minutes before his mother died, it takes him back to his childhood. This is something that's never actually happened to him before, so he doesn't know why he was sent back to the past or what he's got to do when he gets there. While he's back there, however, he does decide to right a wrong that happened in his life as a child. In his past, he remembers that one of his childhood friends that was a little bit older than him that he used to hang out at a park was wrongfully accused of a murder. He takes it upon himself to solve the mystery of that murder and stop the wrongful imprisonment of his friend. But as his plan unfolds, he realizes that this murder that was going to happen, that would wrongfully imprison his friend, was actually tied to a string of missing and other murders that happened in his town when he was a child. So in that way, his life back in his past devolves into a whodunit sort of scenario. Satoru not only decides that he's going to stop the villain, but also save all the people that would have been murdered in that villain's wake. Now, I mentioned earlier that I was really surprised that this show had an overarching plot that was able to span the entire series. But that's not the only thing that caught me off guard. If the solid overarching story wasn't enough to draw me in, what I really like about this show overall is how well they build the relationships with him and his childhood friends. While Satoru does have friends in the past, he really wasn't connected to him all that much. He even claims in the show that he never really connected with any of them. He would really just go through the motions and act like he was chipper and upbeat just to make them happy. And it isn't until going back to the past does he really start to connect with his childhood friends. When Satoru finally shows his courage and fortitude and can-do attitude, all his friends really come together and stick by him and help him through this. The bonds that he builds in an attempt to stop a murderer help him through his entire life. And in turn, he shapes the lives of his friends around him for the better. But in that way, the show goes far beyond that of stopping a simple murderer. It shows that displaying courage can have a lasting effect on everyone around you. By the end of the series, there isn't one single person in his main core of friends or who isn't directly tied to the storyline that isn't in some way affected by his display of courage. Hell, there's even a time where the murderer stops murdering for a little bit. And call me an optimist, but I've always liked shows with that sort of positive message, as long as they do it in a tasteful way. Not like Naruto, where they beat you over the fucking head with it. This show does it tastefully, and it does it in a brief 12 episodes. And to top it all off, the animation is actually really good in this show. I especially like how when Satoru first gets to the past, the entire town is extremely cold and icy. All the adults are also very cold and icy, especially to the children, with the exception of a couple of characters. I like the way they did the art because it sort of encapsulates the cold, icy town that was wrought by murders and kidnappings that people were never really able to solve. The entire town feels almost as unforgiving as the murderer himself. But as Satoru stays in the past and makes changes to the past, things get a little brighter, a little more colorful as the show goes on. And a lot of that feels almost like a parallel to Satoru himself, The town that he initially goes back to is very cold, very chilly, very unforgiving, and very unwelcoming. But as Satoru opens his heart and begins to change and take steps forward, the town itself also becomes a lot more colorful, has a lot more contrast to it, and is able to really feel warm and welcoming as the series progresses. The show is also paced really well. It's a very short 12 episodes, and not a whole lot of that is wasted on random subplot stuff. But some of it is, but most of it isn't. And for me, it's very tough for an anime to have a really well done ending, but this show does wrap up the entire series absolutely perfectly. Every question I had was basically answered by the end of the series, and it does so in a way where it doesn't just feel like it's ending for the sake of ending. It ends in a nice, neat bow, but in a way that makes you feel good inside. So it's very hard for anime to do that. A lot of shows that I end up watching, after watching it for some time, it usually just picks a random stopping point, and you're just stuck wondering, okay, are they going to have more? Are they going to have a season 2? I don't know. This ends perfectly, where it encapsulates the entire series, wraps up extremely well, and you feel good by the end of it, which is not something that I thought would happen, because the show itself is a show that's a very dark premise. If this show does have one major flaw, it's the fact that I was really able to figure out who the main villain was in the show very early. So it took away some of my enjoyment of the overall reveal of the final villain. But that might just be me. I might be an awesome detective. But those are my thoughts on Erased. One thing I will add before I end this video is the fact that I do think this is a show that should be watched in 1 or 2 sittings. If you were to watch like 1 episode a week, I feel like that'll diminish your overall enjoyment of the series as a whole. But what did you think? Let me know in the sweet little comments below. Have you seen this show? Did you not see this show for the same reasons that I've kind of put off watching it? More or less just curious. Have you seen other shows like this? Let me know in the comments below, because I'm always looking for new anime to watch. So, and as usual, remember to like this video and feel free to subscribe to our channel. And if you want to get more of our amazing content, feel free to go to madmadsreviews.com, where we have movies, anime, and television reviews on there. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take it easy.
Now, if you will excuse me, my plane leaves shortly.
You are going on a quest for knowledge?
No, I'm going to visit my mother in Miami.